we're excited to hear your story today, and welcome to A Million Ways to Make $1 Million, the podcast. And today I've got Trevor Waters with me, and I think it's probably fair to say that we've known each other a long time, but
Yeah.
at a distance.
Yeah.
Like we weren't hanging out in the week, every weekend or doing that, but like we grew up really close to each other.
The extended circle.
Yeah, like a lot of mutual friends, the same path through school.
Yep.
And it was a mutual friend and connection that we grew up with and went to school with that reconnected us recently. And I'm glad he did.
Instant best friends.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Well, give a little bit of insight on uh, who you were growing up, because that's one of my,
Sure.
in catching up with you recently, if you don't mind if I speak on it, but you grew up in an affluent neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like we're talking, like ex-professional baseball players and NBA players and all those kind of things. And your father, at least from an outside view, was successful and provided for you. Like, where did that play in a role to have you go and keep the trajectory rather than have a lack of work ethic or whatever could be the stereotype of growing up what I would consider comfortable?
Sure. So I think exposure is probably the biggest thing. You know what I mean? And then exposure to contacts, exposure to different lifestyles, exposure to nicer things that kind of makes you believe that you need to do whatever you can to provide the same for your family. Right? I think that there's a lot of really good things that you can learn from busy parents who are hardworking and disciplined, consistent. There's a lot of things that are good that you can learn and a lot of things that are bad, right? And I think that the reason why I became the person that I am today is because I felt like I could take what my dad taught me and make a couple modifications to make it more feasible for my family and what I'm trying to accomplish. And I can elaborate a little bit on that. My dad was a OBGYN in a small town, so he was busy as heck. My mom was his administrator. They were both gone all the time. So when he wanted to make money, he was gone working, right? One of the things that was super important to me is that I was just around with my kids. I wanted to spend as much time with my kids, right? I wanted to be there for breakfast, be there for dinners, not miss the games, not miss the birthdays, not get the call outs when somebody needs something else, right? Just to prioritize that and the time that I had. And I think, although I picked up a lot of good value from him, it was still that traditional way of thinking that you can create wealth through only hard work, right? And one of the things I've learned by meeting with people like yourself, meeting with a number of people throughout my life, is that there's a million different ways that it can be done that create a great work-life balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you say to the person that's missing games and missing parties and events right now by choice because they're working?
I listen to people all the time. I love hearing from people. I love listening to my friends, their stories. And, the one thing that I hear people a lot of the time saying, oh, I want to do what I love or do what makes me happy, right? And I think, a lot of these people, they're spending their time trying to figure out, their W-2 job, right, where they have all this accountability to everybody else. But a lot of the time I look at that, I say, if you were to spend that same 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, focusing on yourself, focusing on self-development, you know what I mean? Taking a little bit of a risk over here, you'd be able to have so much of your time back. You could buy back so much more of your time. And I think that's where, when I look at what I did and what my consulting company focuses on, it's really maximizing the dollar amount per hour. How do I maximize this so that way I don't have to be at 10 o'clock at night working, right? Missing bedtimes with my kids every single night, or having to put in a 65-hour work week, right? Because that's what the boss needs. There is no supplement for hard work. And I think what you're talking about for kids in their 20s and 30s, there is a time that you're going to have to do a lot of hard work and you're going to have to sacrifice. Nobody comes out of the gate just shooting, home runs, right? You have to fill a pipeline. You have to grind it out. And there were times for 2 years, right, that I was gone every day, all day long, out to rep dinners, out to doctor dinners, networking, relationship building, leveraging relationships, and establishing that trust, right? So again, there's no secret sauce to getting to success fast, but I think that the smart people are the ones that at least figure out a way to say, hey, look, for 2 years, I'm going to grind it out. But once I get the infrastructure in place, I'll be able to coast a little bit more, or at least dedicate some more time somewhere else, right? That might benefit more in moving the needle.
Yeah, you're saying 2 years. I think that there's a theme around this 3 year mark
Okay.
of someone starting a business. And that means some people might have said 4 years of just, it might take a little longer. Some people, it might have been a year and a half or whatever it may be. But there's this constant theme, and you're, referencing it of like, hey, I might be present now. We might travel and I might be at bedtime. But what I heard in that, there was 2 hours where it was all hands on deck, whatever's necessary, fully committed to getting your business off the ground.
Yeah, and that's it. I was explaining this to you the other day while we were just chatting it up. My kids are used to me seeing the phone in my hand all the time. Whether we're in the Caymans, whether we're in Hawaii, whether we're anywhere we're at, I'm always connected to my phone, and that's how I run my business. That's how my clients have access to me to fix their problems quickly, right? Now, obviously, like I have a team for my team of reps now, and that's great to mitigate and manage their problems. But for my personal clients that I've had for years, they still want to talk to Trevor Waters when they want to talk to Trevor Waters, right? So I'm still accountable and I'm still working all the time. It's just I traded in essentially knocking doors for now I'm on the phone, right? So my kids are used to me being home, but it's like, hey, shh, dad's on the phone. Give me 5 minutes, right? Shh, 5, right? Doing the hand signals, and that's life now. Right. So again, I'm not physically away. I'm still home and mostly present, but there are still times where it's, hey guys, chill out. I got to do this, or I got to put in an hour or two of work, or there's an hour or two of admin work all throughout the day, whether it's Sunday night at 10 o'clock at night and a new rep needs me to help them close their first deal. I do what you got to do, you
Yeah.
know? But again, the people that are out putting in that amount of effort to make someone else's dream come true versus putting that same amount of effort in to make your dream come true it's a completely different ballgame,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, let's rewind a little bit. We like to gather some data from these conversations around where formal education played a role in all of this. What kind of student were you growing up? If you had a father that went through med school,
Mm-hmm.
then I imagine education was pressed on in your home growing up. Like, give me the 60-second breakdown of what kind of student were you? Did you go to college?
You're gonna need more than 60 seconds to break that down, but education was hard for me, man. I mean, honestly, I had the attention span of a gnat. I was like your typical boy, ride bikes. I wanted to be outside, rollerblading, playing basketball, right? My mom and dad, because they were always gone working, right? I mean, it was like I just had a little less supervision. So all the times that had free time, it was dedicated to doing fun things, right? Going out, exploring. You know how small town growing up is. It's outstanding. And it's super fun. So education was tough on me. I was never a strong reader. I was never a strong in math or writing, right? It was always something that my brain at least told me, hey, what's over there? Something more fun or something more entertaining. So even though education was kind of pressed on me, it wasn't something that really stuck well because I felt like I was not able to get into that conformity role that the education system kind of puts kids into, right? Where it's just they take the average, and being the kid that sat in the back in the 90s, right? Picking a rock out of my shoe, seeing one of my buddies I could toss it at, right? And get him distracted too. Totally my way, and I got through high school. It was fine. You know what I mean? But I was always looking at, I've worked pretty much like my whole life, just hustling. Or there's lawn mowing businesses, picking up manure out of horse stalls in our small community, right, of farmers. And so my mind was always thinking over here where the education system wants you to be here. I did go to college. I did the 5-year program at ASU, which was cool. My first year was pretty eye-opening. It was like academic probation my first year, just because I was trying to figure out the lay of the land in college. Very distraction. There's, a lot of distractions in college.
At ASU?
Yep. At ASU, no, who would think? So I did the pre-law program there, and like I was explaining earlier to somebody else, is
Pre-law is what you said?
yep. And
Yeah, okay.
I'm not a great reader. I don't like to read. Where you might be able to read something once and retain it, I'll have to read it 2 times, 3 times, just doesn't capture my attention as well. So what I did ultimately was identify what my strengths were, and I went all in on that side of everything in order to find my success.
Yeah, so what did that pivot into? Obviously, did it get as much as you considered taking the bar? Did you take the
Mm,
bar and it not work out? Or did you figure it out and say, hey, I'm going to wrap this up and
sure.
move on to life?
Wrap this up, move on to life.
Yeah.
I did, like I said, it was pre-law, so it wasn't law school. But I realized right away, I said, we talked about this once before, but a lot of the buddies that I had graduated college with went into law school, graduated, and they were working their butts off, man. They were putting in some serious hours for some not very great returns, and I noticed that prior. I think, man, that doesn't look like the type of life I want to live right now, right? So that was a pretty easy decision for me to say, all right, I think people are my best strength, right? So people were my best strength, understanding people, and that's where it led me.
Yeah.
So
So you didn't start a business right out of college, right? You went and worked a little. Could you give me a snapshot of the 6 months leading up to starting your business? What were you doing 6 months before you officially were out on your own? You were up and running. Like, give us a little timeline of what you were doing and what that transition looked like.
man, so 6 months before starting my own business, I was a W-2 employee, just like anybody else, right?
Where were you working?
So I worked for LabCorp,
Okay.
right? I was one of their sales reps. Took me forever to get into the medical field. It's one of those catch-22s where if you're working for corporate America, you either have to have medical experience, right? Or you have to have a college degree, right? And of course, I had the college degree, but no medical experience, kind of breaking into that industry, which took me a while to do. But I learned pretty early on that corporate America wasn't really the structure that worked best for me, right? I figured within about 2 years of working corporate America, I said, man, I like to do things differently. I like to spice it up a little bit. It was like right when those fun socks came out, the golf socks.
Yeah.
Remember that, right? Or it's like 99% of people are wearing your black dress socks or brown dress socks or navy dress socks. And then all of a sudden you've got these wild out dress socks with all the rainbows on them, or, multicolored, or dudes drinking beers or sodas on their socks, right? And what those usually were for me was conversation starters for my clients, right? But the corporate world did not look at it that way. They had this structure that was black and white, and I liked the whole gray area. That's where I made my money. That's where I developed my relationships, everything. Black and white, here's the rules. And I learned that, thankfully, quickly on in my life, that maybe corporate America wasn't for me. And if I was going to truly do what was best for the clients, I was going to have to figure out a way to do it on my own. And that's where I decided to take the shot, kind of go for it. So
What were you selling? I thought LabCorp was somewhere
it's
where you
all,
go get your blood drawn when you need.
yep. So it's like all diagnostics, right? So these doctors' offices, there's phlebotomists and draw stations inside doctors' offices.
Mm.
Right. So as a rep, it was more one of those situations where you'd go to these doctors' offices each day and you would try to convince them to send all of their patients' blood work to LabCorp or Quest or whoever you were working for.
Okay.
Right. And that's how LabCorp became a $15 billion company. Right. So Yeah,
So
crazy.
what's the struggle right now? Were you struggling with the time commitment that was expected of you of a boss? Were you struggling with what you had the ability to offer your clients? Where was the pivot that you looked at? I can't give them what I want to give them unless I do it on my own.
That's it. You'd go into these clients as, everybody has clients with separate and distinct needs. When I would go in, these doctors would ask me, "Hey, Trev, do you know how I can get this product into my office? Do you know where I can get this service from?" Right? And I think the really cool part at the time, I realized LabCorp was like a one show pony, right? One trick pony. They only had one thing to offer. And if I were to try to offer that on the side, I saw pretty early on that there was a lot of opportunity. Why offer one program when I can offer 10, right? So I figured that out pretty quickly. When I started my consulting company, it was kind of one of those situations where I looked at it and said, all right, what do you need? Here's what I can offer. I can offer you blood draws. I can offer you genetic testing. For your patients, I can offer you an allergy program to help treat allergies in your office. I can offer you
How?
anything.
How do you offer that to them?
So what I ultimately do is my consulting company will partner with the manufacturer or the vendor, right? And these vendors out there that are not massive corporate structures like LabCorp, they find people like me, independent 1099 guys, and they hire us to close new business for them, to leverage the relationships we have existing in the industry with the doctors that work best for their new products they're trying to roll out.
So you're not having to go stand up labs and
No,
go and hire people to run the blood work and handle the blood and all that kind of stuff. You're middlemaning relationships. Is
exactly.
that cool?
Yep. The middleman. It's a
Yeah.
good spot to be in because a lot of these doctors don't have people that they can trust. They've been duped a lot over the time that they've been doing this by a number of people who really only have one option to sell, right? I think the biggest issue was when you're trying to create that loyalty brand and you're trying to give them the confidence that you're going to bring what's best is you got to kind of have options. When I was at LabCorp, they said, "Oh, is this the best one?" Well, of course you have to say yes, or you're not going to get the deal. But is that truly what's best for the doctor, or is it what's best for corporate America?
Yeah.
Right?
What do you say to this concept of offering one product to offering multiple? What do you say? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, did you ever come across the struggle of being a jack of all, master of none?
Yes, that's a good point, actually. And that's something that over the last 4 years of my life of doing this for 13 to 14 years now has taught me a lot. Right? I think coming in, being the jack of all trades is great. But when you have one particular product that does majority of what you need as a consultant and it has a more defined purpose. Let's say skin grafting right now. Skin grafting through our medical consulting company is very big for treating these wounds. And so when I started looking at offering all these programs, why would I offer a program that I made 10% on as a consultant when I could offer this program over here for skin grafting and get 75% margins versus 10% margins over here, right? So what I did over 4 years ago is I really looked at going kind of all in all the time on one product, one or two, right? Not having the plethora or the Rolodex of options. I think that can be distracting to your customer when you're pitching it to them, right? Like, oh, I have this, I have this. These guys have limited time and limited attention spans. So you really want to come in with one great product that gives them the competitive advantage over their peers, over their lives, right? And they just get that competitive advantage through us and our consulting companies. So
What I'm hearing is that you said, I'm going to go break off on my own. Did you have to battle any non-competes there? Okay, so I'm going to break off on my own. I'm going to offer it to be a one-stop shop to the relationships I have.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
and that got you in the door. And I imagine there were some, chaotic times of trying to facilitate everything other than just blood work or whatever you were doing and offering at the time. Then you see, hey, maybe this is a little much. I'm going to go lock in and get really, really great at a few services. Currently, right now, skin grafting being one of them.
Correct. And I think that when you have all these different vendors, it's really hard to scale a team. If I were to look at like one of the biggest struggles that I've kind of encountered over the last couple of years of this business is is probably transitioning from a hardcore closer where I'm out knocking doors, closing down deals, doing lunches with doctors, and kind of transitioning from the sales rep mentality over to the business owner's mentality and the scalability of working, in your business versus on your business, right? For the last 13 years, it's always been me. Trevor Waters is the brand. That's the face that the clients see, the doctors see. That's the face that they know. And your ability to scale and grow from a national perspective is significantly limited when your time is dedicated to doing such small reimbursing things for your time, right? So
I want to touch on this because this is some of the photos you showed me are unbelievable.
Sure.
Or maybe you weren't supposed to show me those photos. I don't know. But like right now, someone asks you what you do. What's your answer?
I have a skin grafting company.
Okay.
Right.
So we're locked in this domain right now, skin grafting.
Yep.
Take us through what you showed me on how that skin grafting process saved that person's foot and what that process is, because it blew my mind.
It's pretty incredible, man. I mean, when you look at technology and science right now, it is locked in, and so what we do is we work with different manufacturers who manufacture these skin grafts, and they're made out of placenta, right? So they take the inside lining out of the placenta, they extracted all the healing properties out, they put it into a graft, and it's kind of like a glorified Band-Aid, when you really look at it. So it's not too technical, it's not surgery or anything like that. But this
is not an immediate removal of somebody's and then placing it there. Like
no, okay. When a woman has a scheduled C-section, a lot of them will donate their placenta to a nonprofit. These manufacturers will buy these donated placentas from the nonprofits, and then they have an entire biologics team who extracts all the healing properties out. And I buy those products wholesale from the manufacturers. I get them to my doctors. They use them. They bill for them. They get paid by the insurance companies. And then we're able to invoice the doctors for our product. But from a clinical perspective, these wounds, like chronic non-healing wounds, diabetic foot ulcers, leg ulcers, a lot of these patients who have diabetes, which is a massive portion of,
is that what you showed me? Was that a diabetes case?
Yep.
Okay.
And
just to give some context there, this person's foot looked like it was rotting away.
Yeah.
Like it looked like it had been bitten by a crazy spider, and like it looked like you could almost see the bone.
You see the ligaments, you see the meat inside there, all the flesh, you see it all, right?
And typical options 10 years ago would be what?
Well, even typical options today is to do a below knee amputation, right? Save the rest of the body, eliminate the wound before it gets infected, because if the patient gets sepsis or they end up in the hospital, they could lose their life, right? So,
you know LeVar Ball?
I don't.
He made a lot of news in the last 10 years, but he brought three of his kids to the NBA, but like he was kind of this Kardashian parent of like,
okay,
and it worked, but he was very loud. But he recently just lost his foot, and I think it was to something similar.
Yeah, I mean, man, you could step on a nail, you could kick a door frame or something and make a little tiny hole in your foot, because there's really not a lot of great blood flow and oxygenation in the blood to these types of wounds. And again, this is a massive portion of our elderly and even kind of the young people now too. So we're able to help these people hypergranulize the wound a little bit, and it gets it into like a hyper growth mode. And as you saw in the pictures, we're able to take a person who had no hope, and we're able to essentially grow a massive portion of their foot back, right? Not like bones and stuff like that, but this from a skin perspective.
So you took what looked like you would imagine, not to be too graphic, but in my head, what I saw looked like somebody lost a leg and left it in a Florida swamp and like,
Like chewed on by a rabid dog.
yeah, or something like
Yeah,
that. And then you took it to what looks like somebody had a firecracker accident 15 years ago
totally.
where there was some scarring there, but like not too, I wouldn't offend somebody by asking somebody, hey, what happened to you? I see you
For
got some
sure.
scarring on your ankle. What happened?
Well, what's important is that they have the ankle there,
Yeah.
right? And to the doctors that I work with, they are phenomenal, forward-thinking physicians. And that's what I love working with them is that most doctors would look at that wound and say, this is a dead foot. Let's just cut it off. That's the easy answer, right? But a lot of these patients are dead within 5 years of an amputation. So you just have a significantly higher risk. So one of the things I like working with these doctors on is a long-term plan. You know, when they have these types of wounds, and most aren't that big, right? But the ones that are, we're able to save their limb
Yeah.
and prevent infection and give that person kind of like a normal life again. So my company helps supply those grafts to the doctors where we make sure that we're on top of the rules and regulations based off of the insurance industry and, you know, all the regulatory agencies that oversee these medical products. So we make sure our doctors are safe. We keep their risk low. We make sure that they're doing everything from a compliance standpoint. So we become very much a partner for them, right? And what's kind of actually been really cool is the first 10 years when I was offering all the stuff, all the wow factor, the relationship that I had with those providers was very shallow. It was, this is Trevor, my rep. That's it. But now that I'm bringing such big value, both clinically and economically to these clients, it's Trevor, come to our kid's birthday party. Hey, we want to go out to the lake with you guys. Hey, let's go do Valentine's Day dinner together with you and your wife and us. Right? It's totally transformed the way that we work with our clientele because we are bringing such a big value add to them that it has become more of a partnership instead of Trevor just is the rep, right? So it's been really transformative for the last couple of years.
Let me get into the entrepreneur side of actually creating the deal flow from learning about skin grafts to connecting it with your network.
Sure.
You at some conference and you see this is possible and you think I got to go run back to all my docs and teach them about this technology. Is it your doctors coming to you and saying, hey, there's a technology out there,
Have you heard of this?
find it for me, like go find the grafts for me and I'll use it? Like,
Yep.
give me a little bit of the entrepreneurial connecting the dots on how to go and take advantage of a new technology.
Sure. I think just like in your industry, as you know, just say is kind of the same in mine. When you hear the word in the streets or the whispers in the hallway of something new that's out there that's adding great value, you know, you typically hear that a little bit ahead of time and you start to investigate it. But more importantly, once you realize that it works, it's working, it's creating value for somebody else. You know, so what I did is I jumped on Google. I looked at grafting manufacturers close to me. I went and I interviewed them. Thankfully, they were amazing, right? They were just like, I guess, call it luck, maybe that I found one that was right here in Scottsdale. They were a phenomenal partner of mine. And I went all in. You know, when you believe in something wholeheartedly, you see the opportunity, you can't really waste a lot of time. You got to strike while the iron's hot, right? So I pivoted my business to this whole opportunity of skin grafting, and we have really focused for the last 3 years on being good stewards for our doctors, making sure that the patients are receiving the best patient care. And from an entrepreneurial side, it's an ever-changing industry because every quarter a new manufacturer produces the new graft, right? This one has 3 layers or 2 layers, or this one can heal twice as fast because it has silicone in it, right? I mean, I tell most people it's pretty much like driving a Ford, Chevy, or Dodge truck, right? It's like, for the most part, today's day and age, they all kind of do the same thing. Um, but where the entrepreneurial side has really come in and where the focus has been for me lately has been adding value to other reps. So we work a lot with Striker guys, Medtronics guys, these guys who are working their W-2 jobs, making $250,000 a year as sales reps of W-2 companies. And they have all the relationships we want. Now, the products we're offering, they're not a conflict of interest to their W-2 jobs. But what we're doing is we're creating value by exposing a lot of people to this technology, because a lot of these doctors just they don't know that it exists. I think that's a big part of it, right? Just getting it out there, letting people know it exists, letting the patient know, hey, this is an option for you. It's your best option, right? So,
Can we dive into the operations a little bit?
sure.
How big's your team?
2 people. So I'm the only employee. I have a COO that's amazing. Her name's Vidya, and she's out of Austin, Texas. I've never even met her in person, right? She's fantastic, though. She pretty much has helped me build and scale our 1099 sales team. We talked on the way down here, and I think we're at 18 people now across the country who are pushing the grafts through my consulting company, who are utilizing some other programs that we're rolling out for, advanced wound care and traditional wound care treatments. So employee of one for the first 2 years. It's been a wild ride. The margins are high, the expenses are low, and transitioning from that work in the business to work on the business has been a very unique transition for me, because all I've known is getting out, knocking doors, interfacing with the client, right? So it's a transition from that to, all right, I'm not going to go out in the field today. I'm going to talk and train all these reps. I'm going to spend time on focusing on getting these reps to go out and earn income from my consulting company, right? It's been great. So they got 18 of these guys now. Probably 10 are actually doing something really noteworthy. The other 5 we've brought on probably in the last month. So it's just, walk before you run with some of these guys and girls. But that's where we're at.
Doing this mostly by yourself, do you ever get lonely?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that there's this concept that's spoken about often, is that the road to wherever you're trying to get to could be very lonely. Or they say, I don't love like that's lonely at the top is a little brash for me, but there's just a journey. Like, it's the nights, it's the overhead, it's it's essentially commission,
Mm-hmm.
so it's eat what you kill. And from hard days to the wins, like, it's you, and you're doing this solo.
Yep.
And now with the COO, but like,
With the team,
do
it's
you get
very
lonely?
relatable. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely that lone wolf mentality that I've always had. I didn't play team sports. I thrived in individual sports because I could always count on myself to do what needed to get done, right? To find the way to make it happen. And it's always been that way. And it's they say if you want to go fast, you go by yourself. If you want to go far, you go with other people, right? And I think that was kind of the pivotal moment for me of going, all right, we've made it fast. We're doing great. Like when I say we, me and my wife, my kids, that's the company, right? I've made it fast. I've made it quick. Now we need to have some sustainability, some scalability, and we need to add the team, which is a unique stance for me because I've always counted on myself. Now I have to rely on other people to make smart decisions on behalf of the business, right? So,
Yeah.
interesting for sure.
Can we dive into the operations? I heard when you went through your process,
Yep.
it sounded like you have to purchase your inventory, go sell it. Maybe you have it pre-sold, and then after it's been implemented, you've got to go invoice and bill back for the service provided. Can you talk to me about
Yep.
burn rate and spend and managing,
Sure.
inventory and money?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, when we create a consulting program that is appealing to doctors, they want to be the ones that have the least amount of risk. I think, as I mentioned before in the show, that Doctors have been burned a lot by people who overpromise and underdeliver. Doctors typically are the ones with, the financial hook on the end, right? That they're getting duped. So when I built this program out, I wanted to make sure I took on as much risk as I could to make sure that the provider and the doctor and the client felt that they had the least amount, right? And so we buy these skin grafts up front through a manufacturer, and then, we typically get paid 60 days after they do their first application on that patient. And that process looks like billing the insurance companies. The insurance company has to pay the doctor. Then we have to track down these doctors, whether it's their office managers or their CFOs, and say, hey, time to cut us a check, and, um, we, with our team we're doing now, we're spending close to $1 million a month on product, so you could get pretty sideways if you have a really large wound, like the one I showed you a picture of, so we're doing great. A lot of risk up on the front end, but because you're working with reliable insurances, then it's not as risky. It's going to work out,
Yeah.
right? And doing this for the last 3 years. So I've been burned by reps whose doctors use the graft and then never billed the insurance company. So they never got paid and never paid me, right? Or I've worked with reps who just stopped talking to their doctors, and the doctor just doesn't want to pay it, or it's too hard, or, hey, we spent the money already. I've got doctors right now, they're like, can I make payments to you on this? I didn't know, we were going to have to pay this much out, right? Or I think I had an unexpected expense in the practice, and I spent the money that was supposed to come to you, right? So these are all things that my COO is really well versed in.
Do you have a rule of thumb or an equation that on capital in versus what you take out of the business or anything like that, an insight on how you're managing your expenses and outreach into inventory?
Yeah. Yep. So I pretty much try to keep 80% of the inflow into the business, because as we scale, and we bring on new reps, new groups, new practices, we want to be able to scale as quickly as they're able to, so that there's no capital hindrance on it. So we keep 80% of the revenue that we bring in the business, and we keep the other 20% we'll take out and we'll invest and, utilize it for other things. But as far as expenses go, it's like our expenses are low because we're working with 1099 teams, right? These guys are responsible for paying for their own lunches. They're responsible for paying for their own gas and their own cars and their own coffee stops, whatever they want to do. But that's why they get paid so well, is because they absorb all that risk, right? And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I haven't transitioned anyone over to a W-2 team yet, because the hustlers that are out there bet on themselves. They bet on themselves to win. They bet on themselves to go out and work hard. So I love working with people who are hungry and motivated on their own, and that's going to be your 1099 guys.
From a side conversation, I've just been curious on your answer, but what does being frugal and disciplined in this phase of your life mean to you?
I'm in this phase right now in my life where I have a 4-year plan, and I'm probably 2 years into executing that, plan. So it would have been a 6-year plan, 4 years left for me of making sacrifices, right? Kind of delaying the gratification for the end goal. One of the things you and I have spoken about in the past, and just one of the constant struggles, is having the vision for the end goal, but still figuring out the best way to get there, right? And I feel like right now, and my wife is just, like I said, I'm so blessed to have her on the same page as me, that, we still go out and we'll go to the cabin, we'll go out, we'll do fun trips, we'll go to Disneyland or something along those lines. But more importantly, it's not elevating your lifestyle to your income. It's keeping all that income coming in, investing in cash flowing assets. My goal for 4 years is to be financially free. Have, work optional will be the term that I want to use 4 years from now, which will put me at 42 years old. Work optional. I got young kids. It's important for me to spend quality time with them, but that's why we do what we do. And the delayed gratification is so imperative now, because the more I delay here, to an extent, there is obviously balance, right? But the more I can delay some gratification on the cars, the expensive, really expensive trips or watches or things like that, I almost think about that. And every time I want to look and go buy that nice car, it's like, that's going to help me, you know, have to work another 6 months, right? Past my financial freedom goal. So that's it, man. Frugal way right now. We do what we need to do. We're getting by. We're staying disciplined and consistent on our spending. We're buying what we need to. Our kids have more than they need, but realistically, we're not elevating our lifestyle to the income right now. We're putting all of that into cash flowing assets and with the hope and the goal of being financially free in 4 years.
Where did that come from?
Probably my dad, the guy that worked his butt off, for his whole life. I mean, the guy put in so many hours, you know what I mean? So many hours. They're hard hours. And one of the things that I have seen by observing other business owners, by observing and being a part of other groups, that it doesn't have to be that way, right? It doesn't have to be that you need to be out physically doing the work. You can set up the structure. You can put the people in place, right? So that was a lot of what I learned from my dad. It's like, hey, this is great, man. You provided a great life, but how can I take what you've done and modify it a little bit to fit what my goals are, right? I think that there's a study out there right now that's talking about how people in our generation are spending like 75% more time with their kids than the older generations of maybe our parents and their parents, right? That's kind of where we're at.
I'm curious on, I just like this topic.
Sure.
I think with social media, it's the age of overextend and over leverage, and because you got to put on a show and you've got to look at whatever it may be. What could you say to somebody that is struggling with the temptation of, I'm only 37, like live a little now, you can't take it with you. And I don't have anything about the person that doesn't want to save versus the person that,
Sure.
Doesn't. Like, I just get curious on why they're choosing to do it. What's been, what can you say to somebody that's struggling with it right now?
I think that you have to have the vision of where you see yourself. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important part. Is I think that 99% of people live for today, not for tomorrow. They don't have the vision for tomorrow. They're thinking, man, if I buy this boat, I could use it today. I can have it right now, right? And I think a lot of the quotes that I use, or a lot of the wisdom that I've received from my father, they're famous ones. It's like, you can either work hard now and play the rest of your life, or you can play now and work hard the rest of your life, right? And I think a lot of these concepts is what has allowed me to be okay with the sacrifice, be okay with not caring what other people think about me, you know what I mean? And in the current moment, because 4 years from now, when it's like, live for today like others won't, so you can live for tomorrow like others can't, right? I think that's really big for me at your phase of life at 36. 4, 5, 6 years, that's nothing. You blink and it'll be there, right? You make a little bit of sacrifices here and there, put it in the right place, utilize your time better, and you'll have whatever kind of life you envision for yourself. But I think it all starts with the vision and understanding that here's the goal, here's the vision. If I continue to spend as I'm spending now, or if I go out and buy that car that's going to make me cash poor, or I go buy that house, yeah, it'll look great now. It'll look cool for my friends. It'll feel good in the moment, right? It's like that chocolate cake. Tastes great now, but after you're done eating it, it's not what it was cracked up to be. So, just got to delay gratification, man. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever your vision is. But I think that's the biggest part, is understanding it's okay to be where you're at. It's okay to not have everything that everyone else is financing, right? There's a facade. It's like everyone's got these boats and really nice cars, but they've got a $1,500 payment on it, $1,000 payment. They're putting their family, in economic stress because they want to look cool, feel cool kind of situation. And you got to realize that the true players out there, the ones that understand business, to them, it's okay to be where you're at, right? I think everyone has started there at one way or another when they started their journey. Um, but it's okay to be exactly right where they're at, but they just got to start with a vision and how are they going to get there?
Yeah.
You know,
What could you lend to somebody right now that is feeling lonely on their journey to build what they're trying to build?
I would probably say get yourself, it depends on, surround yourself with people who are in the same situation. So that way you don't feel like you're alone, right? When you start out and you're feeling alone, understand that it's okay to feel that way. Understand that if you do the right things, it'll only be temporary, right? It's like they always say the first person through the door always gets a bloody nose, but they're also the first person to be exposed to the greatness on the other side, right? So once you get through that tough time, as long as you continue to learn, as long as you continue to sharpen your knife and develop your skill, you'll get through that other side pretty quickly. It feels like hell now, but the light's right at the other end of the tunnel, so keep going, keep your head down, stay focused, stay disciplined, stay consistent. I think those are the three biggest things. Focus, discipline, and consistency will get you exactly where you need to go. If you can surround yourself with like-minded people, your net worth is your network, right? That was a big thing for me over the last 3 years, is elevating my friend group, right? Elevating my friend group has elevated my mindset, has elevated my vision, has elevated my dreams, my goals. Grant Cardone wrote the 10X rule, right? And he always talks about just thinking smaller. Everyone thinks pretty small. Being around those people who are like-minded, going where you want to go, are going to help you understand it's okay to be where you're at. Understand that the end, or the, walking through and experiencing the fruits of your labor, is probably closer than you think. And having a team of people, or at least having friends that are like-minded, will help you psychologically probably quite a bit, having someone to talk to
Yeah.
about like the trials and tribulations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's it. Just gotta keep going.
On that wavelength of wisdom, like, what are you passionate about right now?
I'm passionate about wisdom. I mean, I'm audiobooking tons of books. Just there's so much perspective. There's so much wisdom out there that's free for people to go out and grab, and just develop that perspective. So I'm big into being a student of life right now. And I'm learning as much as I can from as many people, from as many books. And I'm passionate about passing that wisdom down to younger people,
Yeah.
people who are struggling, people who think that it's never going to get better, right?
Toss a good one out that you've come across in the last year.
A good book?
Yeah.
Wealth Can't Wait is the book I'm reading right now by David Osborne. I actually got to meet the guy a couple weeks ago. He's a real estate mogul, and his book is just chocked full of good nuggets of information. It's a very easy book to read, and a easy book to use through Audible. But I think it's full of really good stuff that helps you modify your mindset. And I think, as we've talked in the past, it's not so much making the money, it's developing the mindset that's going to allow you to make that money. And so listening to Wealth Can't Wait should give you a sense of urgency to say, and this is something that I've personally struggled with. I've always wanted I want to make my money now. And I think that traditionally the people closest to you always say, hey, take your time, man. You got the rest of your life to make money. How many times have we heard that, right? Got the rest of your life to make money. Why are you in such a rush? Because it's not the money, it's the lifestyle, it's the opportunities, it's the memories that you're going to create from that. So sense of urgency in that book right now it's great.
Yeah. I want to try something.
Okay.
It's a timeline concept, but give me the bullet points from 2005 to 2025.
Okay, so
Someone follows your journey,
sure.
graduated high school, did this,
Yep.
started here. Like, give me
Sure. I'll
breakdown.
keep it short and sweet, right? So graduated high school, did the junior college thing, realized school's school. Went to ASU, did 2.5 years at ASU, came out, worked for corporate America, worked 2 jobs, and I was just hustling in sales, refining my skills in sales and customers. Decided I wanted to start my consulting company, met my wife, started the consulting company, bought our third house together, and had a baby all within the same time frame. So year 30 was pretty bananas for me, right? And then now we're off to the races on our second business, and we're building our real estate portfolio, and life at 37 is looking pretty sweet because of the struggles that have impacted 30 to 37.
Yeah.
So
What's next?
financial freedom is what's next, right? I think the big thing for me that's next is utilizing the capital that I've saved and earned and invested to cash flow for our family. So that way we could choose to homeschool our kids if we want to. We could travel and expose them to the things we'd like. We could be present for our aging family, like our parents. And ultimately, my next goal would be something like coaching or a mentorship program, because I love ultimately helping people the most and adding some wisdom and perspective to people who might need it, right? So that would probably be the big passion play for me after I can get some of that financial freedom, is to say, hey, how can we do mentorship or coaching for people who are just needing a little bit of extra motivation?
Yeah.
That would make me feel happy
I love it.
inside.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
Who can do what you do?
Anybody. Anybody with the right.
No, like be like, bro, who can do it?
Sure. So when you're saying who can do what I do, I mean, there's a lot of things that look at that, right? I mean, from an educational perspective, if you want to start a medical consulting company, you don't have to have a college degree. I do, but you don't have to. Um, what I do is what makes me stand out is the hunger that I have for success, the vision. A lot of people can do it, but how many people can do it well? How many people can be one of the top 1% earners because of their motivation and drive and discipline and consistency, right? And their vision. So not a lot of people can be where I'm at just from the competitive perspective of what I'm willing to go all in all the time. But anybody can do what I do. I mean, it's not something that is, you don't need a certificate of completion to do it. You don't have to go get formal education. You just have to identify what products you like and you go for it. You got to hustle. You got to get kicked in the shin a gazillion times before you get the refined process of it down.
Yeah.
Most people like the view from the top of the mountain, but nobody wants to do the hike to get there, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you say what makes me me, or how many people can do what I do, depends if you want to go on the hike. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? For me, it's
Someone
worth
wants
it.
to join you, join your team,
Yeah.
learn from you. Where are they finding you right now?
Mostly Instagram, or my website's called biomedicconsulting.com. So people can reach me out of there. I would say this as kind of like a nugget to most people who are trying to figure out what they want to do next. You can create some significant financial value for yourself and for your family pretty quickly if you're wanting to get into the medical consulting world and into the medical sales field. One of the things that makes my company special is that I dedicate a lot of time and energy on educating our reps. So if you're somebody who's a hustler, you want a lifestyle change, maybe you're in the field now, but you're not really achieving the financial goals you want, we can help you get there through me and my team and our leadership team. And for people who are not in this field, if you think that you have the ability and the drive and the discipline to want to earn this kind of income and create some good value for your clients and for their patients, I can help you, right? I can coach you up on it. So
What's your Instagram handle?
Trey, TRE_Waters, right? So I keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
I think the balance in the past was I don't want my clients seeing the lifestyle that I'm living. This is something we've discussed in the past, me and you, was with you kind of got to be, or at least lead a life that isn't going to impact your business, right? So I don't post political stuff online, even though I have my own political opinions. I don't do that because now that I have these unique relationships with these doctors, these more partnerships, I don't want to offend a client that's making me 6 figures in a month, right? I don't want to risk that. So I keep that handle the way I have it so that it's a little difficult for people to find me, especially my doctors, to be able to see the lifestyle I'm living now.
Yeah.
So Trey_Waters and biomedicconsulting.com. So
Yeah, it's truly a story of determination, hustle, creativity, and simplicity.
mhm.
It's unbelievable what you're creating with as small as team as you have, and getting creative around growing a team of what I would call contractors, so to speak, to keep your overhead light and all that you're doing. Like it's an amazing combination of creativity and hard work and innovation. And I'm excited to see what happens over the next couple of years. Like it sounds like you're in an evolving world, and it's going to take some adaptability and continued creativity. And I just appreciate you being willing to give the time. I imagine you're probably going to hop in the car and go up north. You still hustle, a
Yeah.
lot, to go
Yep.
pick up checks
Yep.
and
Yep.
say hi to people and all those kind of things, and you're not afraid to put in the time and the work. And I talked to you the other day, and it was like you just did a 4-hour round trip for essentially a high five,
Yep.
and
Yep.
because it was worth it to you and you saw the value in it.
Got to interface with the client. So,
Yeah.
the more they see your face, the whites in your eyes, the more that they can have that trust and established, relationship with you. But yeah, I mean, to your point, the next 4 years is going to be crazy. I think this consulting business is something I'll always have, but as I've spent a lot more time with people like yourself and, a lot of developers and real estate, I think we're kind of looking at, for me personally, how can I implement or pivot to some of these other industries that are going to help cash flow more, right? Right now in my field, it's very active. I'm working, I'm putting time in, but as you've heard my goals, the way to do that's going to be to diversify possibly into something that has more of a hands-off approach that continues to put off that passive income.
Yeah.
So we'll be pivoting slowly to some of these other opportunities,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, the world's our oyster, man. It, like, speaks volumes to the name of the podcast, right? 1,000,000 ways to make $1,000,000. We're in the world of opportunity. You just got to go out and start.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I'm glad that you started. I'm glad that we got reconnected. Shout out to
Same.
Jason for putting us on a group text and
Yeah.
reconnecting us over all these years. And
Yep. It's been great.
yeah, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to following the journey. And I would be willing to bet you'd be a repeat attendee from doing, creating wealth in a different avenue, in the future. And I'm excited to follow along. Thanks for being here, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Yep.